Hello, my name is Megan Bell, and I'm the president of the Waterloo Region Association of Realtors. On Monday, October 24th, voters from across Waterloo Region will have the opportunity to vote in the upcoming municipal election. This forum is your chance to get to know some of the candidates and learn where they stand on issues that matter to you. As a resident of Waterloo Region and a realtor, I know that housing is one of the most critical concerns facing our community. And our members, like many of you, want to hear how our municipal leaders plan to help solve this crisis. Far too many people in our community are finding it nearly impossible to find a place that they can afford, in the neighborhoods they care for, grew up in, or want to raise their families in. Some are even being forced to consider other cities or provinces. Municipal leaders play a key role when it comes to housing and developments within the community. They have the ability to ensure that more homes and different housing types can be built easier and come to market faster. And they can be key in making sure people don't face further restrictive measures to home ownership, such as a municipal land transfer tax as they have in Toronto. On behalf of the nearly 2,500 members of the Waterloo Region Association of Realtors, I want to thank all of the candidates for taking part in this forum and our local Chamber of Commerce for hosting. We look forward to hearing from all of you and wish you all the best in the election.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for viewing the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum for Region of Waterloo Council for the City of Waterloo. I'm James Sebastian Scott from City News 570, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. The Chamber would like to thank the newly formed Waterloo Region Association of Realtors for their support of this event, and we trust the upcoming exchange of policy positions will assist you in making informed choices around your vote on October 24th. The format will include questions on issues of particular concern for businesses and employers across the region of Waterloo. However, we do expect that all viewers will find the content informative and engaging. We'll now proceed with 1-minute opening statements from all candidates in alphabetical order. The rotation will continue for all questions and conclude with 1-minute closing statements in reverse order. And the candidates include Jim Bolger, Mark Fisher, Chantel Huenick, and John Veith. So now we will start with opening statements. If Jim Bolger can start with his statement. Thank you.
First of all, thanks to the Chamber for hosting this event today and our moderator, and I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for being here. My name is Jim Bolger. I'm running for Regional Waterloo Council, representing the great city of Waterloo. I come to this position with a lot of experience that I want to offer this community. I have previous experience on council, 2003 to 2006, just after the Rim Park financing, which we still have 8 years or over 8 years of debt repayment to deal with that. I'm a longtime business owner. I've operated a company called Waterloo Energy Products in the region, in the big town of Maryhill, Ontario. We specialize in anything to do with heating and cooling, but try to really push the environmental sustainability front with carbon-free choices for space and water heating in homes or businesses across the region, or actually throughout Ontario. Immediate things that we have to deal with, in my opinion, is dealing with our homeless issue, housing affordability, healthcare, and there's a whole gamut of issues that are presented to me at the door when I'm campaigning, and they're all important, but I think we have to deal with some of the more imminent things that we're dealing with at the moment. And I have in-depth plans on how I want to deal with that. I'm a big collaborator. The region unto itself is not going to be able to take on these issues without the help of other groups throughout the region. On the homelessness issue, we certainly have to reach out to the Working Center, Habitat for Humanity, because we're dealing with not only a situation where people deserve the right to have a place they can call home, but we're also dealing with mental health and addiction, and that's going to be vital to have some of those groups around the table to help us deal with those issues. housing affordability, we have to work with our partners in the home building and development industry. They are part of the big promotion in pushing our region as a place, a destination that people want to be. And we need to work with them on coming up with ways that we can approach that affordability issue. The region, in my opinion, is not a home builder. They shouldn't be in the housing development business. And I think we need to work with our community builders to help us most cost effectively come up with solutions for people who are in dire need. Healthcare has been a real issue throughout this last 2.5 years of the pandemic. We have seen our healthcare workers get completely overwhelmed with their workloads. We've seen some of them left the healthcare industry. And we need to work with governments at all levels. The provincial government hopefully can repeal Bill 121 or Bill 124, limiting healthcare workers' pay increases to 1%, which is crazy in these economic times. And also, we need to come up with push for valid policy that supports our seniors and elderly in retirement and long-term care facilities who have dealt with isolation and a whole bunch of mental and physical issues, people in their own feces for days at a time because of staffing issues. These are all things that we need to address. They're important to address. And I want to be here to be part of the solution. So I'm looking for your vote on October 24th. Visit my website at jimbolger.ca, and I welcome your input and any support you can give me. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, we'll go with you for your opening statement, please.
Thanks, James. And thanks to the Chamber too for hosting this event and supporting democracy. To start off, I just want to give my background. I'm a CPA, CA, and I've recently retired after 23 years as a CFO of a local manufacturer here in Kitchener. Previous to that, I had lived in Kingston, Ontario for 18 years, and 14 of them I was employed at KPMG, where I was involved in numerous municipal audits and a lot of related industries in the MUSH sector, university, schools, and hospitals. Well, I am also a graduate of the University of Waterloo for math. While I was in Kingston, I was also, for the Chamber of People, I was an active member of the Chamber of Commerce, sitting on the Education Committee and chairing the Taxation Committee. I was the media spokesperson for all federal and provincial budgets at that time. After I left KPMG, I did sit on the Citizens Budget Committee for the City of Kingston as well, where we sat and challenged every line item on the budget and looked for best practices and alternatives on how our dollars were spent. As I was not born in KW, I've always had ties here, as my parents were born and raised here, and I have numerous relatives in the KW area and have deep connections here. This debate hopefully will inform the voters and members of your association or the Chamber in the backgrounds of all the candidates and allow them to make a more informed decision to support in the upcoming election. This debate, for me as a newcomer to politics, helps get my face out there and get known to people in Waterloo, and more importantly, in the greater Waterloo areas, will not only represent the city of Waterloo, but will represent the region. And I think that's important when making decisions. I look forward to this debate and being able to differentiate myself from the other candidates. As I said, I'm a financial guy, and beyond the main key issue of homelessness and affordable housing, which I think we all agree on, the next biggest thing is finance and budgeting, and that's my skill, and I've done that all my life, and hopefully that's the differential. So I ask on October the 24th, you give Mark strong consideration for it to be your regional council. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Chantal, we'll go with your opening statement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. My name is Chantal Unick. I am an author, social justice advocate, and public speaker. I have a Master's of Divinity and Social Work from Wilfrid Laurier. I work as the Registered Social Worker of Ontario and a spiritual care provider. I have lived in this region for 10 years. I love this region and I want to help it to go from good to great. My intention is not to prioritize one voice over another, but to ensure that everyone in the region has a voice and that a wide cross section of the population is considered when we are making decisions that affect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantel. And John, with your opening statements, we'll go to you now.
Okay, thank you, James, for offering your time to host this morning, and also thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. My name is John Beef. I came to Waterloo region 43 years ago to study engineering at the University of Waterloo. And since then, I've experienced life as a student, parent, scouter, sports coach, tenant, homeowner, community volunteer, and working professional. Experience our region transform, adapt, and thrive during that time has ignited my passion and excitement. Living here has offered opportunities for so many, and I believe that with the right leadership, there's great potential to offer more. I think with my work in high-tech engineering, I've equated myself with the business drivers that have produced our thriving local economy today. The startups, the long-time tech companies, the research in motion / Blackberries. I continue to be involved in the business, running my own company, and I think I could provide a very interesting insight that would be helpful perspective for those of us on council. Having volunteered for a decade on the Governing Council of Professional Engineers Ontario and on the boards of various community and service organizations in the region, I gained experience in governance, collaborative decision-making, listening to input from all stakeholders and forming consensus and way to move forward. I feel this will be also a very, very valuable skill set for me to contribute early and effectively to the workings of our regional council. My work as a volunteer with these experiences and skills has equipped me with the ability to think outside the box, solve problems, and collaborate with key stakeholders to bring innovative ideas and solutions forward. I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to serve the citizens of Waterloo and the citizens of the region. I will work hard to build a healthier, more sustainable future for our children, grandchildren, and future generations. So I hope that you will give me the opportunity to do so. For more information, just Google John Veith Waterloo, and you'll find all the information. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll now move to the question portion of the forum here, and Mark, will begin with you on the first question. Many small businesses across the Waterloo region have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, including mounting debt levels and staffing shortages. What assistance should the region of Waterloo Council and all municipalities provide to these operators?
Thanks, James, for the question. That's a difficult one because it's hard to, I guess, pick and choose which ones you're going to support. But I think if there's anything, I think we can probably look at deferral of tax payments, et cetera. There still is, I think, the rent subsidies, et cetera, that were provided by the federal level are still in existence. But beyond that, I guess I would just say buy local and support local. And I think I support that all the way along, that even industry itself should try and buy local and support the Canadian economy. Thanks.
Thank you. Chantel, what assistance should the region of Waterloo Council and all municipalities provide to operators who've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Regional council and our municipalities can do a lot to support and promote local businesses. Like Mark said, supporting local and encouraging others to do the same is one of our primary responsibilities. I also think there is much more to be done in terms of working with federal and provincial governments to let them know that even as the pandemic is drawing to a close, we're still experiencing the financial effects of that, and ensuring that various compensation programs that were initiated as part of the pandemic either remain in place or come back into play. Thanks.
Thank you, Chantel. John, when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic and the operators who have been affected by it, how can Regional Waterloo Council help that?
Okay, well, that's a great question. There's multifacets to the answer. So I would say, first of all, thinking at it from a local council point of view, there's a lot of services that businesses will depend on, the business licensing, the property taxes, and various things like that are under the control of municipal council. We saw some of the innovative things that were done relating to restaurants, where people couldn't go into the restaurant, so the municipalities expedited a change to be able to provide outdoor seating in areas that would otherwise have gone unutilized. So these are innovative solutions that councils can come up with for things that are under their own control. The second aspect to the question, of course, is what sort of financial supports can be provided to these businesses. And I think there we need to look to our senior levels of government, the ones that collect the bulk of taxes from our Canadian economy, to provide realistic and useful subsidies and relief for businesses such that they can remain viable and rebuild their clientele base now that we are reopening and the people are getting comfortable being together in public places once again. So basically, I would advocate on council that we support the needs of business to the upper levels of government and ensure that those levels of government are providing viable solutions. I'd also say that we could streamline the bureaucracy that's involved in many of our local programs so that it makes it easier for the businesses to obtain the kinds of approvals and the kinds of supports that are needed at the local level.
Thank you. And Jim, we'll go to you for your answer on how to support businesses coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, thanks for the question. The last 2.5 years have been very challenging for businesses across the whole spectrum, in particular for small retail, hospitality, restaurant industries. They've been hit badly with the lockdowns and how they transpired. Staff was asked to come in, then laid off, then asked to come in again, and they are still dealing with the results of those lockdowns and the subsequent labor shortage, in particular in those industries. So we need to sit down around the table with the local businesses and those most affected, collaborate with them, listen to them, and try and come up with solutions that helps them. I absolutely agree that we need to come up with innovative ways to streamline, keeping the measures in place, such as expanded patios. If people want to do renovations and whatever, we need to expedite that process for building permits or whatever other bureaucracy involved, because we need to be able to respond to them in a very time sensitive fashion. And I think that's going to be important to help them in their recovery. We are limited in what we can do from a financial perspective, and we will have to reach out to our partners in the province and the federal government for their added support. And that's something certainly that I will advocate for. And I think initially the most important part to me is to sit down around the table with a group of businesses that represent a good cross section of our region and work with them, listen to their concerns and how we can meet some of those needs. and do everything in our power to try and facilitate their recovery from a very trying time in our history.
Thank you, Jim. The next question, we will begin with Chantel on this question. What do you propose to bring more economic activity into the region of Waterloo?
I would like to continue to ensure that businesses that were open pre-pandemic can open again and expand and continue to thrive in our region. I would like to ensure that various markets and craft shows and new business initiatives are promoted within our region, and also to increase accessibility of businesses. So ensuring that any business that wants it would have online platforms and ability to sell to people within our region that may not be able to get to their stores for whatever reason, or and even people beyond our region. We have a worldwide economy these days, and we might as well utilize that.
Thank you, Chantel. We'll go with John next. What do you plan on doing to help economic activity in the region?
Okay, economic activity in the region is a broad topic for sure. So I go back to the three key principles that I've put forward on my campaign. Number one, to improve the quality of life for all citizens of Waterloo. Two, to improve the value that citizens get from the money that the region spends. And three, to improve the local economy to provide rich and diverse income and livelihood for all of our citizens. So I think that plays directly into the question. From the point of view of business, establishing businesses requires perhaps physical space, not always in this day and age where we've moved a lot of our business online, but certainly physical space for activities that require offices, that require manufacturing, that require places of business that deal with physical things, whether it be automobiles or transportation or goods and services. So there is something to do with the region in terms of land use planning to provide an adequate supply of physical premises for businesses to locate in. For other businesses, the licensing process, it needs to be reflective of the needs of businesses that operate online, the businesses that operate out of their own homes, as opposed to having to rent commercial office space, and make it possible for people to build a business without the undue bureaucratic roadblocks that might be in place. I would advocate also that organizations like the Chamber of Commerce are able to function well, to be able to collaborate among all businesses and provide an input voice to the regional council as to what are the key issues that need to be resolved and how we could get that done without unduly, I'd say, complicating the municipal government process. And finally, we want to make sure that the businesses that we are promoting within the region, in fact, actually do provide a worthwhile spectrum of support for our citizens, whether that's providing them jobs that pay well, that provide a sustainable standard of living, that the businesses pay their taxes so that we can afford to maintain the infrastructure that they rely on for their existence in the region. And then finally, that in fact, the subsidies that they may be expecting us to provide are not really an undue burden to the citizens from our municipal tax base in order to attract them to be here.
Thank you, John. Jim, when it comes to supporting economic activity in the region, what do you propose to bring more of that to our region?
One of the biggest contributors to economic activity is quality of life. And I think we need to ensure a whole gamut of things in that regard. You look at, we need to work with the home building industry as an example in ensuring we have a good diversity of housing opportunities. Not everybody wants to live in a 1 or 2 bedroom, 20-story building. So we need to work with the community and the land development industry in promoting opportunities for people to have a wide diversity of housing opportunities. The chamber is very active in trying to attract and retain doctors to our community. There's still many people in our region that don't have a family doctor. Those all contributed to economic activity and quality of life. They're tied closely together, and we need to, as I alluded to in my last answer, we need to collaborate with our business community, the citizens that live in our great city, and we need to come up with ways that we can promote, find ways to promote and sustain our businesses, our development industry, that we continue to have an increase in our quality of life and therefore in our economic activity. So I think it's a collaborative approach, and building on our quality of life, ensuring we have proper health care, housing diversity, will ensure that businesses remain healthy and that we continue to grow our economic activity in the region.
Thank you. And Mark, what do you propose to bring more economic activity into the region of Waterloo?
I guess I continue to support that we have the economic development officer we have for the region and then his group of people. And I guess it comes down to selling the region to prospective businesses and respective organizations and everything the region and the city has to offer, including our hospitals, our universities, our colleges, and even all the arts, the center in the square, a hockey team, junior A, like all the entertainment and things that go along with the quality of life here. I agree with all the other comments too about we need to have a robust, I guess, option for housing and for transportation, etc., that would encourage people and to live here, and then not only that, but for businesses to set up and grow here as well. The airport, that's been in the news recently and expanding. I guess we've got to continue to support and expand the airport. I think we need to be a leader in that airport too, because I don't like the fact that Hamilton and London are close by and we've got competition there. And I think there's too few of airlines, and we need to be the leader to have Kitchener-Waterloo as being the central hub for airlines outside of Toronto and not somewhere else. And that should encourage more development, etc., within Kitchener-Waterloo area. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with John on it. Currently, Toronto is the only municipality in the province that has a municipal land transfer tax. The additional municipal tax is a significant barrier for people trying to get into the market, particularly for first-time buyers. Over the last several years, there have been municipalities that have tried to give themselves MLTT powers. Do you support the expansion of those powers to municipalities outside of Toronto? And would you advocate against our community gaining those powers if one of your fellow councillors was pushing for it?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. Yes, I'm familiar with the land transfer tax, and it's from the kind of perspective of my children that live in Toronto, and so this is a challenging one because municipalities are faced with the challenge of raising significant revenues to be able to fund the services that they need to provide and to maintain our aging infrastructure. So our provincial government has limited the means by which municipalities can raise money. Some have come up with this idea that, well, if people are moving properties from one hand to the other, that perhaps they can afford to put some of those capital gains into the public coffers. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure where I would stand on this issue. I believe that the burden of additional taxes is a burden on individuals more so than anything else. Is it fair? Would collection of those extra revenues translate into my number one priority? Would they increase the quality of life for all citizens of Waterloo? I would have to know that. I'm not convinced that they would. So at this point, I'm basically saying I don't have enough information to make a decision on whether I'd want to promote a land transfer tax. What I'd like to see is more revenue flowing to cities from the provincial government, because they downloaded to us a lot of the social services, healthcare services, and things such as that, so they could balance their budget about 15 years ago. And it's not fair. If we're going to have to deliver the services, we need the revenue, and that's all there is to it. So if I was faced with the need to raise more money, I would probably like to do that from the income taxes that are collected by our province, as opposed to adding to a tax base related to fixed assets like real estate, because that is a regressive scheme and that is not sustainable over the long term.
Thanks, John. Jim, would you support the expansion of municipal land transfer tax powers to municipalities outside of Toronto?
Well, increasing development fees and land transfer tax. First of all, many of the municipalities within our region have undercharged historically for true cost recovery with development charges, land transfer tax, and a whole gamut of other things. And now that we're reaching the end of our land inventory, we're trying to do it on the backs of the remaining people who are trying to build houses or buy houses. I think we've made a lot of mistakes historically, and it flies directly in the face of what we're trying to accomplishing with housing affordability. I need to get a more fulsome understanding of some of the ramifications of, any increases to development fees or land transfer taxes. And that's why I want to reach out and collaborate with the building and development community, because the last thing we can take on at this point is adding to the cost of housing when it already is becoming or has become unaffordable for a lot of our citizens or people hoping to move into this region. So I think we have to be tread very carefully into any potential increases to adding to exasperate the housing affordability. So I need to defer to having a more fulsome conversation with our builder and development community and development services within the city of Waterloo and the region before I would want to take on adding more cost and adversely affecting housing affordability in our region.
Thank you. Mark, do you support the expansion of MLTT powers to municipalities outside of Toronto?
No, I do not. And then I guess I'll expand on that since that's my opening. But in my little election card, which you can find on markforregionalcouncil.com, I specifically outlined the issue with regards to development charges. And I think the one figure I read or heard somewhere that it's approximately $84,000 on every new lot in development charges. And I think that got brought to light when the city of Kitchener increased the parkland fee from $1,000 or $1,500 to $11,000 per lot. And I almost fell off my chair when I heard that. So I want to go back and look at how the region and how the cities come up with their development charges and look at that whole way of cost sharing to get a property online and develop, because I don't think it's fair now to the new home developers or new commercial developers to be paying the exorbitant amount of fees that they pay for to get a property online. And I think it hurts the new home buyer. I'm a little bit biased because my daughter just bought a new home and she was looking at the same issue. And I don't think the costs are shared right. And I think over time, the whole system and the way it's done has just become too convoluted and needs to be reviewed and researched. So your beginning answer was no new land transfer fees. We need to look at what we've got now and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chantel, do you support the expansion of municipal land transfer tax powers to municipalities outside of Toronto?
A large part of my campaign and the way that I will serve on council has to do with public engagement. So before a decision was made with regard to this issue, I would want to make sure to hear from members of the business community and others that are employed by them, and patrons that use the businesses and so on, to really determine what is the best course of action, also with research in collaboration with senior staff from the region. But in general, I think in this age of inflation that we're living in, individuals, families, and business owners are all struggling with inflation, of the cost of living, and the potential threat of rising taxes. My goal is to keep taxes as low as possible, and certainly lower than the rate of inflation. I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Maybe it'll. Oh, yes. Sorry. What we were speaking about before in terms of attracting business and commerce to the region, I do not believe that the best way to do that is through adding more taxes and barriers for them to set up here. I think a smarter revenue stream is to attract as much business the community as possible, and so provide incentives rather than disincentives to do that.
Thank you, Chantel. The next question, we will begin with Jim on this one. The population of the region of Waterloo could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
Thanks for the question. Again, a challenge. We, again, need to work with, if those are the realistic expectations on our population growth, which in many respects can be a good thing. I think we, again, need to work with development services from regional and municipal government level. We need to work with the builder and the developer community, and we need to look at ways to facilitate that kind of growth. We're going to have very onerous asks of us in terms of infrastructure, budgeting, and how we're going to sustain that growth. There's going to involve, sewer, water, roads, passive transportation, all to do with quality of life, and also the real and imminent need to have that infrastructure to support that growth. We are a region that was built on urban sprawl, and although we're pushing density, which is a great thing, and we have a good public transportation system, and our ION that services Kitchener-Waterloo area, and it's translated to significant development along those corridors, I think we're going to have to get innovative in our approach to having housing opportunities that are going to accommodate everybody's needs, including the real and imminent need with housing costs to have multi-generational living opportunities, accessory buildings on properties, because it'll be challenging to sustain and deal with that kind of a growth. Even though in many respects it can be a good thing, it has to be done in a very controlled fashion and with full collaboration with everybody involved.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, when it comes to the population of the region of Waterloo potentially reaching 1 million residents in 30 years, what are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
Thank you. No, I think I agree with Jim on a lot of the issues, and I think we need to look at probably a mix of different developments. I think I've said all along that we built the LRT, and I think with the plan of intensification along the LRT line. So I still support that this is part of the long-term plan. So we need intensification along that line. And probably even if we go into the expansion into Cambridge, further intensification along that line into Cambridge. But saying that too, we need a mix of housing, and we need, we do, as Jim says, we have the urban sprawl, and we need other properties and developments to be able to come online. I think the other night we got asked the question, do you support the Green Line in Waterloo? And I said, no, because we need more development land, unfortunately, to have that mix of housing options available for everybody. So once you get, say, that question, you need to start looking at amalgamation of properties and or amalgamating with the city of Kitchener to be able to have the development properties available, not only housing options, but commercial development office lots available too, because Waterloo has no commercial development land available. And where are we going to get it? You either amalgamate or you expand with and amalgamate with Kitchener. So I think we've got to look at all our options and further build the LRT and the transit system. And then, as I say, expand our housing options and our affordability for all the areas that are involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Chantal, when it comes to the population of the region, what infrastructure priorities required to support the growth of 1 million residents potentially in 30 years?
I think increasing population density, especially in the areas along the LRT, is inevitable. And we see this in municipalities across Ontario and Canada and various high population cities across the world. And I think that is not mutually exclusive to various housing options. So multiple generations or various family arrangements can live in high density situations. I think it is better for everyone also in terms of access to resources in along the LRT line, and in terms of sustainability for our environment. If there is less need to use cars, then people will be less likely to use personal vehicles. Now, having said that, in order to make population density work with quality of life, we also need to ensure that our transit resources are top notch. And so making sure that our transit system is frequent and sustainable and accessible and environmentally sound so that everyone can use it in good conscience is key. Thanks.
Thank you, Chantal. John, what are the infrastructure priorities that are required to support almost 1 million residents in 30 years in our region here?
Okay, thanks, James. Good question. The fact that we're expecting our population to increase to that magnitude in such a short time is a testament to the fact that we've created a great community here, a community that people want to live in. And I think the reason people are choosing it is because we have the quality of life and we have the economic and livelihood opportunities. So I think the biggest priority for me would be that we don't destroy that base, that what we've created over the past 40, 50 years through this growth in a reckless way, in a way that doesn't value the core aspects of quality of life in the region that we have already established. And so, yes, the infrastructure is important, and the use of that infrastructure. And as Jim and Mark and Chantal have all said, that transit was an important piece, that we have a core line of LRT, and we could continue to expand that beyond phase 2 to phase 3 to make it so that people can travel throughout the region without having to build giant roads to accommodate all the vehicles that they'd have to use if there were no transit alternatives. I think also we need to make sure that our development is environmentally sustainable. So there's various wetland areas for groundwater recharge that have been identified in the official plan of the region. And we can't go ahead and build houses on those and expect still to draw our fresh water from partially at least from our supply in the ground. It may be the fact that the city of Waterloo, being constrained to the north end and the hard boundaries with the townships, that maybe Waterloo can't build on a lot of new property. But I think there are a lot of sites within the city of Waterloo where a density increase would provide a substantial number of more living spaces to people. I also think that the priority in terms of infrastructure will be that all people in the region have a place to live. And even today, as we've mentioned before in this debate, that there's evidence that people without having reached 1 million in population don't have anywhere to live. So our long-term development plans have to take into account a wide spectrum of housing that is affordable for people at the low end of this, at one end of the spectrum, and yet is attractive to people that would like to move here at the other end of the spectrum. I've mentioned transit, I've mentioned active transportation, I've mentioned all the basic infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, waste disposal, all part of that equation. And yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to take more than a 4-year term of a councillor to oversee this, but I think with the right perspective on it and with collaboration, council will be able to make the right decisions and enable us to get to that 1 million population without destroying the quality of life that we have today.
Thank you, John. The next question will begin with Mark on this one. What financial support, should the Ontario government provide to the region of Waterloo?
Good question. That's a tough one, but I think Dave already kind of alluded to that with the expansion of hospitals. I think we need another hospital in this region where the population is growing and we're already bulging at the seams. I hate to say that word at the hospitals, and we do need money for that. And as brought up the other night too, money to support and pay for the LRT and the LRT expansion. I think other cities have gotten their whole LRT paid for by the province or by the feds. We had to contribute to that. So I think we can at least petition for funding for the LRT, petition for funding and support for expansion of the hospital. And then I think beyond that is like petition for money for the airport and for development too as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Chantel, when it comes to financial support, what should the Ontario government provide to the region of Waterloo?
The region of Waterloo should be entitled to funding in most every area that I can think of. We should be entitled to funding both to make our transit more sustainable and more accessible. I know right now the Mobility Plus budget is overrun by medical appointments and transportation to and from those. And I think those need to be put in their rightful place, funded under healthcare expenses. So I think, as Mark has just said, greater funding for healthcare and potentially the advent of a new hospital in Waterloo region, greater funding for affordable housing that is also designed sustainably, that's going to contribute to the overall well-being of our regional population as well as our broader population. And I'm someone who really doesn't give up easily, and so if I am elected to council, I will pursue this funding, advocate strongly, and keep working until we can justify it. I also really appreciate what others have said in terms of funding the regional airport and ensuring that we lead the charge as far as attracting international travelers and visitors to our region that way.
Thank you, Chantel. John, when it comes to financial support from the Ontario government, what should they provide to the region of Waterloo?
Financial support from the provincial government, very good. I think also the federal government has a role to play here. Number one, healthcare, yes. And it's more than just building hospitals. The buildings are fine, but you realize, of course, to build a building, it's not utilized sufficiently because, well, nobody wants to fund operations. Where we need the funding is in the operations. We need the funding in a model that actually works so that, number one, citizens have access to primary healthcare. We don't have access to primary health care in a lot of cases because we have a billing model for our primary care physicians, which is not up to date, which doesn't allow them to serve the population as they need to, right? There could be changes to that. OHIP plays a role in that. There must be changes to that to make it work. But we also need to address mental health care. Mental health care so that we're not sending the police out to deal with a mental health crisis, so that we're not using policing to solve the substance abuse crisis that we have in this region, right? That we also are able to provide adequate care for our seniors. And we saw what the problems were through the course of the pandemic, and where people were not served very well within the homes and dwellings that they had, where they required additional care and they're unable to live in their own homes. So healthcare, provincial and federal, that needs to get fixed. Then, of course, we need transit. We have to be able to fund the transit expansion that we have. And as I think Mark mentioned, other municipalities have received a lot of money from the provincial government to build their systems. We built our system with only a third of the funding from provincial government in phase one. I think they need to ante up and provide us with full funding if that's the model that's being applied to the rest of the province. Also, active transportation. That's a facility-based thing. To be able to build trails, multi-purpose trails, and cycling infrastructure that is safe to ride on. I went for a ride with someone from Cycle Waterloo region just the other day, and there were certain areas that we wouldn't ride on because even though there's some green paint on the roadway on this particular regional road, that isn't going to protect you when a vehicle traveling at 50 kilometers an hour runs into you. So a lot of the cycling infrastructure that we put in place is really not safe, and more capital spending would be required to improve that. And then finally, we have the infrastructure of the actual roads and highways. The provincial government collects a tax off the sale of gasoline. They should share that with the municipalities that have to maintain the roads that the cars drive on. That's my answer.
Thanks, John. And Jim, what financial support should the Ontario government provide to the region of Waterloo?
Well, there's a whole gamut of things that they need to better support. They've been talking about two-way GO transit between our region and Toronto. We need to stop talking about it and we need to start doing it. And that's a funding mechanism that they can provide. The funding for affordable housing, if it's a valued thing in our province and our community, then they need to step to the table to help us fund that. Hospital funding, the expansion of LRT is going to hinge largely on the province committing to our region that they will fund that. And they should fund it 100%, as they have done in many examples recently. Our original budget for the LRT was 500 million. I think at last count, it's probably up to 2.5–3 billion. Like, we're not very good at budgeting, apparently. So we need to have commitment on a full support for that. One of the things that the province, not necessarily in funding, but could really help us in attracting and retaining people to augment or support our healthcare industry, is the removal of Bill 124 and how it affects limiting healthcare workers' increases to 1%. It's embarrassing and it should be retracted as soon as possible. And last but not least, to me, one of the biggest existential threats to humankind, to our society, is climate change. All the municipalities, including the region of Waterloo itself, has declared a climate emergency. We've committed to 50% carbon reductions by 2030 and 80% by 2050. At the same time, the province is funding on ratepayer and taxpayer dollars to run gas infrastructure into rural communities across the province. It flies in the face of everything to do with common sense in terms of climate change mitigation. They're spending an average of $20,000 per door to run natural gas into those communities. For that same cost, you could put a air source heat pump or a geothermal system into everybody's home or business and have zero carbon emissions at site. When you look at societally, our space heating, hot water heating, and personal transportation accounts for almost 7 tons of carbon emissions on a yearly basis. The only way we will ever have a chance to meet our mandate in terms of climate change mitigation or dealing with what we've declared a climate emergency is to make significant steps to support financially people making the switch for their space heating, water heating, and personal transportation to carbon-free choices. The Ontario government's funding of natural gas expansion flies directly in the face of what we should be doing. And I would push personally to ask them to stop that kind of activity, which is very detrimental to our well-being in the future.
Thank you, Jim. That now concludes the question portion of the forum. We'll now move into concluding remarks from the candidates. And to begin those concluding remarks, John Veith will begin the 1-minute concluding remarks. John, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, so thanks, James. And also thanks to the rest of the candidates. I think this was a very enlightening discussion on many issues. We've heard from 4 of us. There are actually 10 people running for this position, and I'm somewhat disappointed that the others weren't able to be here. We've heard a lot of consensus on many of the key issues and a few differences of opinion here and there. And we've had a glimpse of our personalities and motivations over the course of this debate. I say to the electors, the choice is yours. For me, I'm going to remain approachable and basically make sure my opinions are informed based on a diverse spectrum of stakeholder input that is available. That's how I would support diversity. I will honestly provide the full range of insight from my skills and experience to council, that we can collaborate toward the best decisions for the citizens of Waterloo in the future. I will remain true to my 3 basic priorities: the quality of life for all citizens of the region, the best value for the citizens from their money that is spent, and the local economy continuing to provide an income and livelihood for the citizens. And all the while, ensuring that we decrease the detrimental environmental impact of all those activities. I will lead by example. I'll walk the talk, and I'll say that in my own campaign, I've taken the risk of not buying giant plastic signs and putting them on public roadways. I've not distributed tens of thousands of pieces of paper to people's mailboxes. I think that we are living in an online world, and people can find out, the voters can find out who we are without having to expend our precious natural resources in the process. So that's my walk the talk. I'm an environmentally small footprint campaign. I hope that these are the reasons why you, the voters, will want to vote Veith for regional council in the election on October 24th. And as I said, for more information, you just have to Google John Veith Waterloo, and it's all there. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Chantal, will go to you with your concluding remarks.
My name is Chantal Hunick, and And on October 24th, I hope that you vote for me. If I am elected to the regional council, I will work hard for this region and you in particular. I will bring all of the experience and expertise that I've gained from this region to the table. And if you engage with me, which I hope that you will, I will be glad to bring your experience as well. I look to make this community safer and more equitable for everyone through expanded, sustainable public transit, housing for all, and access to community resources which reduce our crime and improve everyone's quality of life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chantel. Mark, we'll go to you for your concluding statement.
Thanks, James. And again, thanks to the Chamber for hosting this event today. And I agree with John. It's kind of disappointing that we didn't have more of the candidates involved than just the four of us. But anyways, I'll admit that don't know the answers to all the problems and the issues the region is facing or going to face in the future. But I will ensure you that I will give it my best efforts to understand these issues. I'll listen to the experts and make an informed decision. I think if you go to my website, you'll see that I put down that housing and homelessness are probably the two key issues that have been brought up. And beyond that, it's my belief that it then comes down to budgeting and financing once you've resolved the two top issues. So who better to serve as your regional council, but somebody that's spent his whole life in budgeting and financing. I will challenge the status quo and ask the questions that need to be asked. Are we doing it the best way? Is the program that we're funding still meeting the needs of the citizens? Is there a better way to do it, or does it need to be altered? And make sure that your tax dollars are spent in the most efficient way. Sorry, my phone's going off, but I believe we're going to need to make choices in the upcoming years as the pandemic has brought to the surface a number of areas that have been underfunded or overlooked. We need to resolve this and require additional resources and additional revenue. I hope that you will see from my work and from my business experience that this will make me the right choice for you to support in the upcoming election for regional council. Therefore, I ask on October 24th, you place your confidence in me and vote Mark for regional council. And again, check my website. It's all one word, markforregionalcouncil.com, and see there a number of different alternatives I've brought forward, like the school buses, high school buses. If we've got a bus shortage, why aren't we having the high school kids take the bus, the GRT as an alternative? And I've put forward in my website as well a number of different ideas to just think about and look for options to make sure we're doing things the best way. Thank you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. And Jim, we'll go to you for your concluding remarks.
Thanks to you for moderating today in the chamber, and to my fellow candidates. Democracy is alive and well, as I said, in Waterloo region. So it's nice to have an opportunity. I want to stress in my closing remarks the experience I bring to the table. I was a former City Waterloo councillor from 2003 to 2006. Some of the highlights that I want to mention during that time period, we were dealing with very similar times in terms of economic pressures. We just got to the point where we realized about the Rim Park financing scandal, and we had to deal with that issue. Our council brought the new streetscape that many of us still enjoy in Uptown Waterloo, where we pulled the entire business entity along King Street and created a great environment. And then we also were the council that approved Waterloo Town Square. And one of my proudest moments on council, when we were challenged on the west side of the city with their lack of recreation facilities and library facilities, we were faced with the challenge of having to raise an enormous amount of money. And I reached out personally to the YMCA. John Haddock was the CEO at the time, to see, because I heard mention that they were going to look to be expanding Waterloo. And I personally brokered a deal between the YMCA. I knew the people, Carol Stewart and Dennis Huber, who were in charge of the Research and Technology Park at the University of Waterloo, and approached them about the possibility of a long-term land lease, to which they agreed. So we built that facility. The Library Services Board loved the location. So we brokered a deal that the YMCA built that entire facility with their own funding. They look after all the operating costs on an ongoing basis. We have a long-term land lease with a great partner in the University of Waterloo Research and Technology Park. And that facility, with the YMCA and the library in the west side of Waterloo is still one of the best used libraries in the entire region, which is a testimony to a great collaborative approach, and something I want to carry forward with both business and building development. I'm a current business owner of Waterloo Energy Products. It's not only, sometimes people accuse me of being perhaps self-serving, where I push environmental sustainability and carbon emissions. To me, it's our challenge and our duty as the human race to push to try and leave our planet a better place than we inherited. And I think the biggest threat to our future is climate change. You only have to look at what's going on in Eastern Canada, Florida, and the Carolinas, where they estimate the cost to rebuild what they've lost as a result of climate change is going to be over 50 billion with a B. So the cost to do nothing is crazy, and the cost to do something in the relative terms is insignificant. Personally, I've been involved in 2,500 homes and businesses that have shifted to geothermal or air source heat pump systems across Ontario, translating to 12,500 tons of carbon emissions reductions on a yearly basis. It's a staggering amount, something I'm very proud to have accomplished. I brought in as a consultant with NRCan, Greener Homes Program, and many governments before that. I pushed this agenda as much as possible, not because I want to serve myself, because I want to serve our community, our province, and our country the way I believe it should be. I want to bring this proven track record in politics, business, community involvement to work in Waterloo, representing the citizens of Waterloo at the Region Council table. I have a strong understanding of the importance of budget review and the constraint and challenges of improving efficiency and delivering services to you as taxpayers and customers. I will start. One of the most important qualities of a leader to me is empathy and the ability to listen. You're going to be forced to make hard decisions following that process, but it's important to listen to everybody's concerns and come up with a collaborative approach. I've demonstrated history in dealing with the demands that exist to serve the citizens of the city of Waterloo, and feel I can bring that to the region table with both from a monetary and a transparency perspective. Collaboration with business owners to maintain and grow our local economy is going to be vital. And experience counts. And I think I bring that to the table. I encourage all the voters to visit my website at jimbolger.ca, learn more about my platform. And if anybody's interested to volunteer or contribute to the campaign, all the information's there. Thanks for listening and spending your time. And I look forward to serving you in the future.
Thank you, Jim. On behalf of the chamber, I'd like to thank all candidates for taking time from their busy schedules to participate in the forum. If you're a resident of Waterloo Region, the municipal election date of October 24th is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you're aware of voting location and other options. The Chamber hopes this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thanks to everyone who participated, and have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge Chambers of Commerce for the candidate forum for mayor of the city of Waterloo. My name is James Sebastian Scott from City News 570, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. The Chamber would like to thank the newly formed Waterloo Region Association of Realtors for their support of this event, and we trust the upcoming exchange of policy positions will assist you in making informed choices around your vote on October 24th. The format will include questions on issues of particular concern for businesses and employers across the region. However, we trust that all viewers will find the content informative and engaging. We'll start with 1-minute opening statements from candidates in alphabetical order. And that starts with Rob Evans, then Dorothy McCabe, who is not here yet, Kip Saunders after that, and then Shannon Weber to end things. The rotation will continue for questions from the moderator. Shannon Weber, followed by Kip Saunders, will provide closing statements. Based off that, we'll get going with the opening statement. So Rob, you'll begin with your opening statement.
Thank you, James. Thank you for the Chamber and the good folks who are interested in bringing a positive message to our community about the coming election on October 24th. My name is Rob Evans. I was born in Waterloo. I'm a CEO of a technology company that helps simplify the process of bringing good renters, good tenants, and good property owners and leaseholders together to save money in accommodation and housing. One of the things that's really important to me in building community and building business is working together as a team. And innovation is something that Waterloo is most famous for, certainly globally. And there's a big part of how we innovate as a community when we work together. So there's a lot of really cool and fun, exciting things with our very simple and specific plan called the A Plan for Equity in Housing. And I'm really excited that this is a great forum to be able to introduce this to you folks. So we're going to bring innovation to City Hall when I'm mayor of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Kip, we'll go with you for your opening statement now.
Okay, thanks very much to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this and inviting me in to share my views for the future of Waterloo. My name's Kip Saunders. I've been a part of the Uptown business community for almost 30 years now, and I'm a small business owner. So I believe I have a unique perspective on some of the issues that are concerning the Chamber of Commerce. I do believe that it's time for some fresh perspective at City Hall. We need to streamline the process, and we need to eliminate some of the red tape that's causing delays in opening businesses and challenges in keeping them open. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to the debate.
Thanks, Kip. And then Shannon will go with your opening remark.
Thank you to our hosts, our moderator, and my fellow candidates for putting their names forward and sharing their ideas today. My name is Shannon Weber, and I came to this city in 1996 as an economics student at the University of Waterloo, and then pursued my MBA at Laurier. And I have since then, and during even my time as a student, been very involved as a community and business leader, working on many projects in partnership with the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. All of the things that we want and value in our city, things like parks, recreation facilities, libraries, healthcare, and other public services that we rely on, they depend on a strong and thriving economy. It's the economic growth driven by those here today that help ensure that our city can deliver on the services our community needs. Ensuring that Waterloo is one of the most desirable places to run a business, grow a business, start a business is a top priority. And the city needs to ensure it's doing what it can to support those and that all that you do every day. And it's clear that housing is a top priority. I've been hearing it across the city since I began this journey on May 2nd as a mayoral candidate. My name is Shannon Weber, and I offer my service and collaborative leadership style as your next mayor of Waterloo.
Thank you, Shannon. And then I see Dorothy's just signing on here, so we will wait until she's on so we can get her opening statement as well. So.
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. I don't know what the glitch was there. I was on and listening to everyone and heard you say, Dorothy's not here yet. And I'm like screaming into the void. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
We were just wrapping up opening statements, Dorothy. So if you don't mind to go with your 1 minute opening statement, then we can get going with the questions afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. So I am Dorothy McCabe. I'm running to be the next mayor of Waterloo. I'm a government relations professional, currently working with council and senior leadership in the municipal sector. I was former Mayor Carl Zare's chief of staff and a key advisor to John Malloy when he was a cabinet minister and member of provincial parliament. I'm the only candidate with experience currently working in the municipal sector. And I welcome the opportunity today to talk about my leadership, my experience, and my expertise in municipal government. I actually started my career working at the North York Chamber of Commerce and then later as the executive director of the Richmond Hill Chamber of Commerce before returning to Waterloo. So I certainly appreciate the work that chambers and the business community does. And I would just also say that being a mayor requires experience. And after close to 20 years working in this sector, I can confidently say that I have the experience needed to start on day one and lead Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. We will now begin with the questions that were put together by the chamber. So the first question, and we'll begin with Dorothy on this question because we had to go out of rotation there for the opening statement. So based on your recent discussions with voters, what is the priority issue in this election?
Thanks. Thanks again. So yeah, housing, I think is definitely one of the priority issues. And when I say housing and development, I mean from, right across the board, from people who are currently unhoused and street involved to those needing affordable housing, as well as to, seniors living in homes in Beechwood that are looking for a place to downsize to a smaller place, to young families I've talked to who make a decent living and working in our city who can't find a place to live. So we need to densify our community. We need to use the land we have available creatively and collaboratively to do some really interesting infill developments, low rises, to build our city up and to continue to make it as vibrant and as interactive as we can. But housing definitely is out there and a critical need and a basic human right.
Thank you. Kip, based on your recent discussions with voters, what is the priority issue in this election?
Yeah, I think you're not going to be surprised to hear that we probably all have a very similar answer to this, and it is the affordable housing crisis. It's a crisis in the community. As Dorothy previously mentioned, there's many tiers and levels of it, from the people who are without homes to people who are around a gentleman of my age who's maybe going through a separation and trying to find somewhere to live. But one thing that hasn't been touched on enough when we're talking about the affordable housing crisis is that the houses that we build, the new affordable units that we build in the community, they also need to be accessible. I recently met with a gentleman who had MS and is in a wheelchair, and he said he was having an incredibly difficult time trying to find accessible, affordable housing. So even if he could find an affordable unit, he couldn't get into it. So we need to focus on affordable housing in general in the community by working with developers and to incentivize them to build more affordable units. But these units also need to be accessible.
Thank you. Shannon, when it comes to the priority in this election, what have you been hearing from voters?
I've been hearing from voters even before I filed on May 2nd, and even from the work that we did with partners like the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce when we were doing our work with Wellbeing Waterloo Region, and when I was at the Community Foundation in Vital Signs. It is housing and our affordable housing crisis, and I think I know we all have been using that language, is something that we really need to tackle with the tools that are at our disposal, the levers that a municipality has. And so my ideas, which are elaborated on my website, include striking a mayor's task force on affordable housing and smart growth, because what I'm hearing across stakeholders is that we're missing tapping into the talent and knowledge that we have locally. around this issue. And we need to do that with urgency. So that's part of my plan to tackle this issue. And then to look at other municipal tools that we have at our disposal that we haven't used at the City of Waterloo to solve this issue. So that would include looking at a community improvement plan, which probably some of your members are familiar with. We typically use those both in the uptown and I know in downtown Kitchener as well, for things around the core. But we haven't used that widely as other municipalities have to tackle issues around affordability. And the connection to affordability around energy use and sustainability in our infrastructure is also really important here. And again, other communities have been using that community improvement plan tool to tackle that and encourage that in both new development, but also in retrofitting. And I think those are important levers for us to explore and using the expertise that we'll bring together on the task force.
Thank you. And Rob, when it comes to your recent discussions with voters, what is the priority issue in this election?
Thank you, James. We've learned from listening to experts in the field who are right there, ground floor, building homes, managing the services of folks who have needs, among many other people who also work for the municipality, both federal and provincial governments, as well as our two local councils. So what we've learned is this: equity and housing are the priorities, in fact, for our community. This means different things to different stakeholders, depending on what who you're speaking to or who you're speaking with. Neighborhood zones, those are important. Secondary zones, the folks in your world here in the real estate associations will understand what these mean. The alignment of standards, these are what's needed. The equity and housing plan that we have brings equity both to leaseholders as well as to owners. And the issue that we're looking to tackle right now is one of the gap that's being created by rapid growth. And right now there's an issue where momentum has slowed and in fact stopped in a lot of the sales of new build condos. Innovation is what's needed to solve these challenges. The old methods, the old approaches that are slow and expensive, they're not the way to go anymore. We've got an amazing community that's vibrant, and innovation can bring a lot of great things. And so in promoting what's best for our community to help talent attraction, to help sales keep happening, to prevent the crisis, both of course for the affordable housing issue, the 1,000 homeless people, but students are paying 25% more than they need to for the exact same square footage. These are some of the crisis issues, in addition to the growth management challenges that we have very simple and specific plans to bring solution to. So those are the things in equity and housing that are important to our community right now, James.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Kip. Do you support the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act that was recently passed by the Ontario legislature, and should it be implemented in the city of Waterloo?
Yeah, it's definitely, these are complex issues to discuss, but I do support the act. I think that it could be utilized properly in the city of Waterloo, but we do need to see case studies to make sure it's not the costs are not going to get out of control with such a strategy being implemented. So with all of these issues, we need to look at it very carefully, study the data, and make sure that it makes sense for our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Shannon, do you support the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act that was recently passed by the Ontario legislature, and should it be implemented in the city of Waterloo?
Well, I can appreciate the intention behind it. And I know that other candidates have suggested that they may be supportive or interested in using this power. But when I hear language about unilaterally managing a city or making decisions on things like land use, it is quite alarming. For effective change to happen and for these and other major priorities to move forward, I think the city really needs a collaborative mayor who can catalyze the change and not dictate it. So that's my concern around this issue. And that's always been my leadership style, is a collaborative leadership style. When I've served as the executive director of the BIA, on town and gown committees, economic development advisory committee at the city, and as a director of community engagement. And And so that future of affordable housing really takes that collaborative style to build across bridges across all stakeholders and really advocates for Waterloo on this key priority.
Thank you. Rob, do you support the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act that was recently passed, and should it be implemented in the city of Waterloo?
So, James, there's some really interesting things that make Waterloo unique. We have the two-tier level of government. I'm not sure if everyone on this panel is fully aware, but what's most important about this is the collaborative history we have in Waterloo and Waterloo region. These things are very important. They give us a lot of ability with or without this legislation to work collaboratively. Folks like Ken Sealing, Karen Redmond, we've got a long track record of leadership excellence. And again, these are management issues. When a strong mayor were to impose different things with respect to involving themselves too much in the world of development, that's when sometimes communities don't fully bring everybody along with them. And so what we do is we do favor a market-centric approach and a collaborative way to work together. So in Waterloo region and at the city, I will lead the exact same way, with or without this legislation, work well with council and represent Waterloo city interests at the region. That's our take.
Thank you. And Dorothy, do you support the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act that was recently passed, and should it be implemented in the city of Waterloo?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the issue around the Strong Mayors Act has missed the mark to an extent, because we don't need the strong mayor system across Ontario. What we need are strong communities. And so through my work as a government relations advisor, currently working in the town of Milton, and with discussions that we've had with the Premier and with Minister Clark about this bill, the message that we've delivered through the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus has been, we need strong communities. And what I mean by that is that we need the province to let municipalities make the decisions that are right for their communities without the province, because the province at this point can overrule the municipalities on many, many issues, and certainly one regarding planning. So I think that's a really critical piece to understand, is that this piece of legislation, the Strong Mayors Act, doesn't do anything to actually allow municipalities to take their destiny, so to speak, in their own hands. So do planning processes need to be updated? I can tell you at the town of Milton where I work, we have a very streamlined approach to working with the developers and the development process and the building permitting process. And so, yeah, there's improvements that could be made, certainly, to the city of Waterloo's planning processes. And I think that's the approach we need to take. We don't need another housing task force. The federal government has held one, the provincial government has held one. We know what needs to be done in order to address these issues. What we do need is a strong mayor that is actually going to protect Waterloo's interests and get these housing projects moving forward.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Shannon on this one. Currently, Toronto is the only municipality in the province that has a municipal land transfer tax. The additional municipal tax is a significant barrier for people trying to get into the market, particularly for first-time buyers. Over the last several years, there have been municipalities that have tried to give themselves the MLTT powers. Do you support the expansion of those powers to municipalities outside of Toronto? And would you advocate against our community gaining those powers if one of your fellow councillors was pushing for it?
So no, I do not support this idea of an MLTT. At a time of this housing crisis that we're dealing with, increasing costs, and I don't think that it's appropriate to levy a tax on purchasing or selling a home. And I think hopefully we can all appreciate, and with basic economic principles here, that includes extra costs that would be passed on to renters, and people don't need those extra costs in their lives at such a challenging time from an affordability point of view. So we simply can't add another burden or take us away. That's just going to divert us even further from our affordable housing goals.
Thank you. Rob, do you support the MLTT powers, and would you push back against one of your fellow councillors who might be pushing for it?
So thanks, James. I don't push councillors around. I don't push candidates around. What's important here is that we listen to the experts that we already have. The city of Waterloo has 1,300 staff. Many are in land use planning. The region, we also have collaborative experts who can work well with councils. So we're going to work well together, no matter who I'm working with on council. Now, what's most important is we understand the issues. You mentioned it in your question, first-time buyers. There's the affordability gap that's been created through especially the amount of growth that we've had in our region that's recently come to a very slow pace, where we need to maintain the momentum. We need to remind folks why Waterloo is a great place to live and help those folks transition into the market as renters and then move from rent to own to become owners. And when the gap is too big, then we're not focusing on the right housing mix and the right issues at hand. So the issue here is one of affordability. And a lot of folks want to move to Waterloo because we are better options than just GTA and others. So with respect to the MLTT question, there are other tools that we have that bring innovation to this that do bridge that affordability gap that's been growing too much. So that's what we'll do when I'm mayor of Waterloo.
Thank you. Dorothy, do you support the expansion of the MLTT powers, and would you advocate against those powers if one of your fellow councillors were pushing for it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would work with that councillor and help them, better understand the process and some of the challenges that currently exist and some of the extra costs that would actually put on top of this process. And as I said in my last answer, I currently work at the town of Milton, and I can tell you that the planning process there is far more streamlined. They follow, all the consultations. They're not cutting any corners, but they're a municipality that has already, there's best practices in place. And I think that there's great opportunity for the city of Waterloo and potentially other municipalities across our region to take a look at their model and what they do that actually will speed up the planning process and the building permit process for our municipalities. And I think that's, the value of, having a mayor that currently works in the municipal sector, right? We know that there's best practices out there. We know that there's municipalities that are doing things in different ways. I can certainly tap into those relationships. I'm not suggesting that there's things that the city of Waterloo staff aren't at the top of their game in, but clearly from the conversations I've been having, there's need for improvement. And some of that also is tied into the customer service, right? We can redesign, we do need to redesign our website and use some of the technology and tools that are already available to us to help make the process move forward more quickly, more accessibly, in a more streamlined manner.
Thank you. And Kip, do you support the expansion of MLTT powers, and would you advocate against one of your fellow councillors who might be pushing for it?
Thanks. Thanks, James. Yeah, I do feel like obviously as mayor, you need to be working with a collaborative approach with the council members. That being said, excuse me, we need to focus on the task at hand, which is lowering the cost of housing in the region and not adding additional taxes to the process. That, as Shannon mentioned earlier, that will trickle down to the renter. As the only renter currently running for mayor here, I feel that struggle specifically. And also with the business, on the business side of it, we need to streamline the process at City Hall. And if we can't find enough money in the budget to hire more people to issue permits and deal with the planning department at City Hall, then we need to be cross-training these people so they can do multiple jobs, and it's just not one person issuing permits, dealing with inspections, etc. This will bring costs down and streamline the process. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Rob on it. What do you propose to bring more economic activity into Waterloo, particularly the downtown core area?
Thank you, James. So my work in collaboration across the province and with local municipalities as a leader, as a board director on the OTC, Ontario Technologies Corridor, in addition to the Clean Technology Alliance with different cities working together, we also recognize my work with the BIAs is going to bring together the other shopping districts in our region, in addition to and especially strengthening the Uptown Waterloo. Uptown Waterloo, there's so many opportunities for streetscaping, for improving the attraction, not only for the talent management issue that we need to retain the great staff here and students and people who want to come and work and live in our uptown. Those are some of the things that we're going to do when I'm mayor of Waterloo. More specifically, the neighborhood planning, the streetscaping that will be coming to some of the areas of our city are going to make better use of our current existing assets. First 100 day in office, we're going to do a full asset review and implement innovation in a rapid form that's going to allow for the new builds that we need, in addition to making better use of existing space and our green space. Those are some of the attraction issues we're going to bring to restore the vibrancy of Uptown Waterloo.
Thank you, Rob. Dorothy, what do you propose to bring more economic activity into Waterloo, particularly the downtown core area?
Thanks again, James. So I think that primarily this issue is about, and as I've outlined on my website, mccabeformayor.ca, is about really creating a livable and an attractive city, one that's vibrant with our, with our arts and culture sector, one that has, a wide range of activities to do outside of work, because we really, to be a full person, we need to live, work, and play. So I think to really increase our economic activity, we need to keep the talent that we have here. We need to work with the students at the universities and college and retain those people who those smart minds that are graduating and make our city attractive and exciting and vibrant, so they want to stay here and either start a business or join one of our growing companies. And I would also add, or to come to our community, to attract them from other places around the globe. And I would also just add that economic activity also is transit and transportation has a huge component of that. We need to be able to move people back and forth from our communities to other communities really efficiently. And so when I was at the City of Kitchener, I started and led and developed the business case for the creation or the expansion of two-way and of all-day GO rail service between Waterloo region and Toronto. And that has now become the Toronto Waterloo region corridor, and work is continuing, but that fast, efficient service that our community is dying to have will be here in about a year and a half. And I was instrumental in starting that program and leading that advocacy. And it is a key part of our economic development strategy. So I was really pleased to have worked on that. I continue to advocate for it, and I will continue to work on those issues as mayor.
Thank you. Kip, what do you propose to bring more economic activity into Waterloo, particularly the downtown core area?
Yeah, thanks, James. This is something I can speak to uniquely as far as a candidate for mayor here. I have opened several businesses in the community, bars and restaurants, and these are the types of things that attract more people to the city. We need more cool, vibrant bars, restaurants, shop fronts in the downtown core in Uptown Waterloo. So one thing I've discovered is that the problem with the Uptown region right now is if you're not right on the strip on King Street right there, you're out of luck. People are not moving to Regina Street or Caroline Street to visit restaurants, bars, or shops. So we need to activate those side streets as well. If you go downtown Kitchener, it's a community of side streets where people are traveling all among the community down there to enjoy bars, restaurants, and shops. We need to do that uptown as well. And if we can activate some of these streets outside of just the main strip on King Street there, then that'll also lead to bring down some of the commercial rents, which are a major roadblock to people opening new businesses in the uptown area. I also feel like we need to create a more vibrant community down there. As mayor, I will have work to develop a local arts council, which will have a direct open door policy to me to talk about how we can increase the arts in the community in the uptown Waterloo area. Finally, my plan to make public transportation free on the weekends and extend the hours till 2:30 in the morning will also bring more people to the uptown area and boost economic development. Thanks.
Thank you. And Shannon, what do you propose to bring more economic activity into Waterloo, particularly the downtown core area?
Thanks for the question, James, and it's near and dear to my heart as well. I'm so glad Kip is also representing uptown business owners, and we say in Waterloo we do say uptown, but I know there's some continuity there with downtown Kitchener. And as a former executive director at BIA, I think this is a really important question because we know that COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted different industries and sectors, including retail, hospitality, arts, and culture, that are quite a significant proportion of the businesses in or organizations in our uptown core. And I think that the City of Waterloo's solar initiative that supported Waterloo's businesses to try to recover from the pandemic was a good start. But we need to look at the next phase of economic recovery, including for our uptown small businesses. And that's why one of the pillars of my platform is an inclusive economic and social recovery. And that's really about ensuring that Waterloo continues to remain a destination to live, work, learn, and play. And I like hearing that language because they're all connected. But part of that is looking at how we remove the red tape at City Hall and make it easier for our small businesses, for arts and culture sector to navigate some of the things while balancing the diversity of needs. And so as mayor, I will ensure that the city continues to look at adapting to these barriers, to removing these barriers and streamlining the processes to make it easier for these organizations to activate and grow and thrive in both the uptown and beyond.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Rob on this one. The population of the region of Waterloo could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
James, this is exciting. The growth that we have is unlike any opportunity almost any other city across Canada. So the big infrastructure stuff, it goes well beyond some of the nearsighted things that others are proposing. The big picture vision that we have, it comes from innovation. Waterloo is very unique. We've got an exciting history of working well together to build these big things. So the LRT is one example, but there is something that we haven't really touched on yet. The current infrastructure challenges have created an economic opportunity, but the 5-year of the LRT build, in addition to 2 years of COVID, it's much like the BIA recovery work and the emergency disaster recovery work that I did with another town that had challenges that for 7 years they had to dig out from. So when we implement our big ideas and the infrastructure that includes rapid rail, working well with other provinces, cities across the province, as well as our federal government to finally bring the infrastructure changes that are needed for my son's generation. These are things that require vision, but also require action today. One quick example, Toronto in 1972 could have built the rapid subway line from downtown Toronto to the Pearson Airport for $270 million. That's a bargain, costs $10 billion today. If we don't implement smarter change right now for those big picture visioning ideas, it will cost too much and it will be my son's children's generation that may or may not benefit from those things. So the big infrastructure plans that we have include better use of existing space, the asset review that we have with our team, the action team, not a task force. It's time to get stuff done. So the big picture vision ideas need to be implemented today so that we can reap the benefits of those infrastructure investments over our generation and for our children's generation, James.
Thank you. Dorothy, the population of the region could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
Thanks. I just want to double check because I'm getting a message that my system, that my audio quality might not be great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you
Yep.
fine.
Okay. Okay. I don't know what my computer's telling me that. Okay. So on the infrastructure and the growth that's happening, certainly we need to obviously maintain and the infrastructure that we have. And by that, I mean, the built infrastructure and the built form. We certainly need to stay on top, but we already have about a $20 million gap with some of the roads and bridges and things like that. But with climate change, upon us, and with severe weather continuing that we're going to be continuing to face in the coming years, it's critically important that we make sure that our infrastructure is maintained and that we build it so that it's resilient for the future that we're facing from a climate change perspective. Certainly some of the things that I want to invest more in are transit and improving the transit service across our Waterloo and Waterloo region, because I think that's a really important for particularly for the youth to move them hopefully out of cars and into transit or e-scooters or to use the LRT that we're continuing to expand. But I think infrastructure goes beyond just the built form, and we also need to really think about investments that we may need from bandwidth to make sure that the companies and the people who are coming here and the students and me at home with my low audio quality have the bandwidth we need to be able to really interact and work in the modern knowledge-based economy. So paying close attention to that. But then of course the infrastructure we need includes green spaces. Like we just said with how do you bring more economic development and activity to our city? We need a vibrant community that's livable. We need green spaces. We need more trees. People sort of bring nature into the city as much as we can, and we need some of those other amenities to make people's lives better. So I look at infrastructure in a really big, broad way, and not just the concrete that's creating our built form.
Thank you. Kip, the population of the region could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
Yeah, thanks, James. We obviously the roads are in terrible shape right now throughout the city, and if we activate the reach of public transportation, that can alleviate some of the stress that we're having on the roads. So we definitely need public transportation is a major focus of mine. It needs to be running later. It needs to reach across the city so we can move people around. We do need more green spaces as well for the future. And I really believe we need to focus on living as a community again. So more cricket pitches or ball hockey courts in our parks to bring people together as we've been separated so long due to COVID. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about the population increasing by this much, it still comes back to the affordable housing issue. If all these people are moving here, they're going to need somewhere to live and live affordably. So we need to solve the affordable housing crisis first and foremost, as well as deal with the infrastructure issues that we have.
Thank you. And Shannon, the population of the region could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
Thanks, James. I'm hearing about this, and I know for those that have even been following the official plan review at the regional level, and questions about how that will then impact Waterloo. And so there are details, and we've talked about some of them around, of course, affordable housing, but also on smart growth, really about creating a more livable community for all. And I have more details on my website about those priorities at shannonweber.ca, but I thought I'd focus on some key regional issues and issues that I've been at the table with Greater KW Chamber of Commerce leaders as well on, including our original joint hospital working group. And that is a major infrastructure project that we've been working on here. And now we're at that next phase where there's great work happening at the Grand River and St. Mary's Hospital Board level do that planning. And so I will continue to be championing that work as a mayor that advocates for Waterloo and the importance of that next level of hospital infrastructure to serve the needs that we know are growing, our community needs today, and absolutely we're going to be needing these to be fulfilled in our growth. And the other piece is, of course, not just around vibrant transit and transportation within our region, but also connecting our region. And so the chamber was a lead, and I was part of the Connect the Corridor Coalition. And there's more work happening that I think is very important for a mayor to champion on connecting interregional transit connections that we were talking about actually last week with the post-secondary debate, and the importance of moving people through that. And that will be an important piece for the mayor to have a good handle on and be a strong advocate for in terms of infrastructure connecting our region.
Thank you. That now concludes the question portion of the forum here. We'll now go to concluding remarks from the candidates. Shannon, you'll begin with the 1 minute concluding remarks, followed by Kip Saunders. So Shannon, go ahead with your concluding remark.
Thank you. Waterloo, together I know that we can create a more livable city and region for all. And my experience in collaborating with organizations like the Chamber and a number of community organizations, leading these community projects to bring people together to advance the needs of Waterloo, can mean that you can expect this style from me as your next mayor. And while my community and leadership experience is one of connecting people with opportunities and ideas, this is not me looking for a next political role. This is really me about continuing to serve the community as the collaborative leader that you need as your mayor. And I know that to reach our aspirations of affordable housing, smart growth, and strong neighborhoods, and an inclusive economic and social recovery needs this kind of leadership style for change and growth. My deep experience in municipal, provincial, and federal governments, and my leadership roles at the BIA in the post-secondary sector and on multiple Waterloo committees and boards means that I can quickly and effectively advance these priorities for you and for our community. With my business training and experience, I commit that I will run this or lead the city like a corporation and respect your very valuable tax dollars as well. And there's more details on my priorities and why I'm the most experienced candidate that can be found at shannonweber.ca. Please connect. I want to hear from you. And to all that are watching this, thank you for taking your time. Thank you for my fellow candidates, for James and the Chamber for hosting. My name is Shannon Weber, and I look forward to serving you as the next mayor of Waterloo.
Thank you, Shannon. Kip, with your concluding remarks.
Thanks, James. I moved here to Waterloo to go to university back in 1992, and I never left. I love this city. That's why I'm involved with this. It's not a stepping stone for me either. I am here for the city of Waterloo. I love the city, but we can do better. We need some fresh ideas and some new perspectives from outside of the political realm. I'm a local business owner. I'm a renter in the city. I have a unique perspective on how we can meet the challenges that the city faces. You can learn specifically about my platform at kipsaunders.ca, and I invite you to join this journey with me to be the next mayor of Waterloo. My name is Kip Saunders. I'm here for you, and I'm here for Waterloo.
Thank you, Kip. Dorothy, we'll go with you for your concluding remarks.
Great. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you for listening. And as I've said at the start, being a mayor requires experience, and I am the only candidate with experience working in the municipal sector. I have the experience, and I'm ready to lead and start on October 25th. Waterloo and cities across the region are facing some complex challenges, and some of those we touched on this morning. And the provincial government has signaled that there are changes coming for municipal governments through its strong mayor's legislation. So what I think we need to ask ourselves, what will this mean for Waterloo and Waterloo region? And the answer is we just don't know yet. But what I do know is that it will take a mayor with experience in municipal government and with those existing relationships to manage these changes and to ensure that Waterloo's interests are protected. So I'm running for mayor to lead Waterloo towards a future that will help build a better city for you, for your family, for your businesses, for your coworkers, for your friends, for all of us. I have the experience and the vision to start leading and to start working for you on day one. I ask for your support and invite you to visit McCabe4Mayor, that's the number 4.ca. And thank you to Ian, to James for hosting, to the board, and to all the chamber members for your interest in this election, and certainly for all you do for our community. Thank you again. I'm Dorothy McCabe.
Thank you. And Rob, we'll go to you for concluding remarks.
Thank you. James and Ian and the chamber, you folks know what we need for Waterloo. And we know exactly what we need because we've been listening. We've been talking to all major stakeholders, and we represent a lot of them. By that, I mean, I am part of the innovation community here, and I've spent over 24 years professionally and was born here, went to university here. What's more important is I understand what the brand of Waterloo means globally and locally. And we have an amazing opportunity here. Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, the townships. We have an innovative culture already here in Waterloo, and I don't need to read my notes to understand how our solutions, because they've come from you, are going to bring innovation and promote Waterloo's interests within our province and within our country and globally to best represent what we need as a city within the context of our neighbors. And it's innovation and collaboration. My track record is one where we cut red tape, we move quickly, we move faster, and we don't need more old-fashioned, slow-moving, expensive ideas. There's a lot of excitement coming, and there's a great way to build and promote what's best in our community. And those are the things that we're going to do when I'm mayor of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. On behalf of the chamber, I'd like to thank all candidates for taking time from their busy schedules to participate in this forum. If you're a resident of our region, the municipal election date of October 24th is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you are aware of a voting location. The chamber hopes this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thank you to everyone and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
you.
James.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for viewing the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge Chambers of Commerce Candidate Forum for Chair for the region of Waterloo. My name is James Sebastian Scott from City News 570, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. The Chamber would like to thank the newly formed Waterloo Region Association of Realtors for their support of this event, and we trust the upcoming exchange of policy positions will assist you in making informed choices around your vote on October 24th. The format will include questions on issues of particular concern for businesses and employers across the region. However, we do expect that all viewers will find the content informative and engaging. We'll now commence 1-minute candidate opening statements through alphabetical order. After a series of questions following this same rotation, 1-minute closing statements will be provided in reverse order. Our candidates joining us today is Karen Redmond and Narayan Datsukram. Karen Redmond will provide an opening statement.
So I too would like to thank the chamber and you, James Sebastian, for this forum. You know, when we think back to 2018, who could have predicted what would unfold? The past 4 years have been challenging, and I'm proud of how the Waterloo region responded to the pandemic and managed the vaccine rollout while continuing to move forward with sound investments for the future. The region matters to each of us as business people, as families, and as a community, and how you see yourself in the region greatly matters to me. The region led by its council sets goals for the future. We make things happen through partnerships, visionary leadership, and our diversity of voices. Together, we work towards building the best community we can be. So you can see how being chair of the region is a significant role. As your chair, I respect the trust you've placed in me, and I welcome the opportunity to continue to lead the conversation on identifying the region's priorities for growth, prosperity, and social responsiveness. I've frequently been asked what is the big issue in this election, and I can tell you they're all big when you're in the middle of them. Certainly, housing affordability, attainability, and homelessness are complex problems requiring long-term solutions with partners across the community and at all levels of government. From my perspective, this campaign is about leadership and the ability to plan for the future and also to respond to that which cannot be predicted. I look forward to discussing a range of topics with you.
Thank you, Karen. Narayan, we'll begin with your opening statement now as well.
All right, thank you for having me. So my dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Narayan Datsukram, and I live here locally in the region of Waterloo. It does not matter how long you live here, but I've lived here almost 30 years. I educated myself here locally and beyond. I currently hold over 12 university degree, including a leadership and master of social work. And I'm currently finishing off my doctor of social work, specializing not only in leadership, but also in clinical work as well too. I believe that a regional chair position has to do more with the leadership skills that we have. Well, Ronald Reagan once said that politicians are not the solution, they are the problem. So I want people to listen to this debate very keenly, because as much as leadership experience is important, I have the right kind of leadership that is important to move this region forward without any question. I believe that my almost 30 years of grassroots contribution to this community at the grassroots level, working with a variety of different people and with a variety of different projects, are all solid pieces to lead this region. So I look forward for this debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll now begin the question portion of the forum here, and Narayan, will begin with you on the first question. Based on your recent discussions with voters, what is the priority issue in this election?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that my conversations started off not since when I put my name forward for this regional chair position. It started off years ago. And one of the biggest things I'm hearing is the disconnect between the politicians and the people and poor leadership. When I talk about poor leadership, think about it. We have 75% of the regional councillors are leaving, right? And so poor leadership, disconnect between the politicians and the people. Obviously, we know about the pieces about housing and homeless and so on, but there's nothing much we can do moving forward if we don't have good leadership to bring a team together so we can work on those pieces as planned. So that's what I'm hearing. Disconnection, between the people and poor leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, what's a priority issue in this election that you've been hearing from voters?
So I was in Elmira yesterday knocking on doors, and it was environment. It was a sense of place. It was the relationship between area municipalities and the region. It was looking, I hear a lot about healthcare. I hear a lot about the school board, neither which are the purview of regional council. But, I cannot not comment on the speculation as to why long-term councillors are not seeking re-election. We have had an amazing council. Nobody could have predicted what the last 4 years have been. Many of my council colleagues are choosing not to run again after 30, 35 years of providing public service. And I would tell you in an exemplary way. And a lot of them have reflected on the fact that new voices, more diversity, a council that reflects the demographics of our community are the things that they are promoting. And they're going out and they're knocking on doors of young female candidates, Black candidates, and trying to make sure that our council continues to work forward. But I think it's disrespectful to dismiss these decisions. A lot of the colleagues I have that aren't running again really did a lot of soul searching because they recognize how very important the role of regional council is and the difference that we make in the lives of the people we represent almost the next day. And those are businesses, they're the community, we're helping shape the future. There has been a lot of very hard work done, and none of these individuals made that decision lightly. And I commend them for building a very solid foundation from which we can move forward and continue to do investment in the future.
Thank you, Karen. We'll move on to the second question, and we'll begin with Karen on this one. Many small businesses across Waterloo region have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, including mounting debt levels and staffing shortages. What assistance should the Region of Waterloo Council and all municipalities provide to these operators?
So I have to say that I am absolutely impressed with how the business community stepped up during the pandemic. And I look at the formation of Best WR, and that was the presidents of both of our chambers of commerce, that was representatives of Communitech and Waterloo Economic Development. And they provided a lifeline and input for supplies of PPE, letting people know, and the regions supported bundling and buying of PPE when it was very scarce. As we go forward, there have been provisions made by the federal and provincial government for businesses. I know that during the pandemic, I was on a conference call with a lot of local restaurateurs. And while they were worried about their individual investment in their business, they were truly worried about the mental health of their staff who were being whipsawed into working for a couple of weeks and then not working and having to apply for CERB. So what we did as a community is the region invested money, about $60,000 in mental health supports that businesses could direct their staff to apply for. And throughout the region, all of our counseling services provided group mental health and individual mental health services for people. So I think there's a lot of ways that through economic development, we can continue to meet the needs of individual businesses. But I think as far as tax relief, those are things that we have lobbied and will continue to lobby the provincial and federal government for.
Thank you. And Narayan, what assistance should the Region of Waterloo Council and all municipalities provide to small businesses who have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic?
So I think that it is important for us to educate businesses that when you are advertising a product or service, make sure that you are providing and serving to that standard. So for example, I try as a local citizen here, I try to shop locally as much as I can. And I went to the farmer's market and I shop. And I was excited to buy some garlic. When I came home, the garlic says came from China. So that is a problem. So I think the educational piece, we have to educate people that if we want to support local businesses, they have to make sure that they are doing things that represent what the people want. That's one thing. But also, obviously, we will have to continuously work with different levels of government. Let's not forget here that we have several MPPs and several MPs in the region who have promised to do a lot of pieces for the businesses. So I will think that it will be part of my role, not only to work with them and have a coffee, but to hold them accountable so that the businesses can flourish moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Next question, we'll begin with Narayan on this one. Currently, Toronto is the only municipality in the province that has a municipal land transfer tax. The additional municipal tax is a significant barrier for people trying to get into the market, particularly for first-time buyers. Over the last several years, there have been municipalities that have tried to give themselves MLTT powers. Do you support the expansion of those powers to municipalities outside of Toronto? And would you advocate against our community gaining those powers if one of your fellow councillors was pushing for it?
Yeah, so for me, let's not forget here that I'm running for regional chair. And I don't operate in a way where I make decision on my own. A leader should never make decision on his or her own. As I've been looking on the website of all the regional councillors, it looks like they have the solution for everything. So if I was to get it, my job will be easy, right? Because they have all the solution. So what I will be doing, I think it is important as a leader, I think it's important for us to recognize our own skill set. I have my own unique skill set, and I, as a leader, I have my weaknesses as well too. But I always believe that when you can recognize your weakness, it is an automatic strength. The first step I will because being a leader is not about me anymore. It is about the people, what they want really. And my first thing will be having that conversation with the regional council to see, not to know not only of their ideas, right? Because if we are listening only to their ideas, it means that we are just doing things based on how we see fit. Because at the end of the day, we are representing the people. So for me, it's getting a sense as to what is it that the people want, right? That's the bottom line, and then take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Karen, when it comes to the MLTT powers, would you support the expansion of those powers to municipalities outside of Toronto? And would you advocate against our community gaining those powers if one of your fellow councillors was pushing for it?
So James, I really appreciate the question. And I would have to tell you that Toronto has the Toronto Cities Act. So they are sort of a different animal than the rest of every other municipality in Ontario. And they have many authorities that the rest of other municipalities don't. There is only one taxpayer. And I would have to tell you that there are some things in the Toronto Cities Act that would be nice to have in the region of Waterloo. This is not one of them. There's only one taxpayer. And the reality is we work at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which is a provincial organization, as well as through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, to make our voice heard, to say that there is only one taxpayer and we have to be responsible in how we budget and what our taxing authority is. It's interesting that Minister Clark has just announced and had proclaimed the Strong Mayors Act, and that only applies in Ottawa and the City of Toronto. The devil is always in the details, so we look to see what the Strong Mayors Act actually entails. But I would have to tell you, I'm happier to have strong cities and strong regions. And I think when we work collectively, always representing the best interests of our constituents, that is the best way to go forward. So I would not support this particular aspect of the Toronto Cities Act, and look at other ways that we can encourage investment in building, affordability of housing, and a variety of mix of housing. And it is one of the things, again, that I've talked to people at their doors about, and that is the regional official plan. We have recently, probably about a month ago, referred our regional official plan to Minister Clark for his comments, and being able to bring that local lens and those priorities to how we move forward for greenfield expansion, for 15-minute cities, for complete cities, so that you can live, work, go to the pharmacy and buy groceries in your neighborhood, no matter what corner of the region you're in, whether it's rural or urban, is really, really important. And I think those are the kinds of things that I continue to advocate to the province, to say it's very important that our voice is heard and that we have that local autonomy for planning.
Thank you, Karen. We'll go to the next question and begin with you, Karen, on this one. What do you propose to bring more economic activity into the region of Waterloo?
Great question. And, I would have to tell you that during the pandemic, the region of Waterloo, our almost 4,000 members of our staff continue to work towards the investment in very large infrastructure. I think of the King Victoria Transit Hub. I think of two-way all-day go. We're getting there. We're not there yet. The investment and the partnership in the Breslau GO station with Metrolinx. We have had a historic expansion investment of $35 million into the airport. All of that connectivity is very important so that we continue to attract investment and talent into the region. We also have the East Side Lands, and we're looking, I just came from WISA, actually, which is an organization in partnership with the University of Waterloo, the airport, and NavBlue, and it is looking at sustainable aeronautics. All of these things continue to keep us on the cutting edge of implementing technology. We're all going to continue to fly, but we need to do it smarter, and we always need to have an eye on our footprint in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to that, we saw the opening and investment of $123 million into the bus maintenance facility on Northfield. That allows us to service articulating buses and electric buses, and we've invested in installation of charging stations. It's smart growth, it's planned growth, and it's focused to, again, continue to move forward so that we can be the world-class community that we know we can be.
Thank you, Karen. And Narayan, what do you propose to bring more economic activity into the region of Waterloo?
That's right. Good question. You cannot be a work class region if you don't have a safe region, right? So we have seen crime is going up and so forth here, right? Despite the fact that we have the chief is making almost $400,000 a year. So the thing is, if we are able to do our piece to make sure that our city, our region is safe, there wouldn't be any need for us to knock on doors to bring people here to operate their business here. We have to create ourselves in such of a way that people will be coming to us, not we going after them. We go after them because people are not coming to us. And so for me, start with a safe, and start with a safe city where people feel safe. The thing is, you do not hear people talk about these pieces. They try to put it underneath the rug. So for me, start with safety, and unless we clean out all of this mess, people wouldn't want to do business here. All the other pieces, we can work our way around it without any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Next question, the population of the region of Waterloo could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth? Narayan, we'll begin with you on that question.
So first of all, when you are leading a region, you cannot do guessing game here. So we keep hearing that, the region will grow, will have X amount of numbers coming in, right? So the way I've seen it, most politicians, most people, they are looking at the glass to be half empty, right? They are not looking at the glass to be half full, and that's a problem. And so for me, it's about recognizing and try to do an assessment to understand who are the people who are coming in here. Are we just seeing the negative pieces and say, oh my goodness, people are coming, we have to find them, find them a place to live here? Or are we going to try to figure out and see what skills are they coming in the region with, right? What resources are they coming in with, right? And we assess from there. We have to make sure that we understand who are the people coming in, how long they're coming in here for. Are we just going to come for a year or two, and so forth? So without doing a proper assessment, we cannot do anything else. We cannot say that, okay, we're going to do this and we will try to build, several thousand of homes and so on. How do we determine that? If we are going along that path, it means that we are working in a blind spot without any question, without realizing it. So that's how I will tackle it. Analyze the situation first, see who is coming, focus on the resources. Don't rely on a small circle of people to solve the problem, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Karen, the population of the region could reach 1 million residents in 30 years. What are the infrastructure priorities required to support this growth?
So James, that is the question of the moment. I would have to tell you, the region of Waterloo is poised to build our share of homes that are part of the 1.5 million target that the province has set out in 10 years. As a matter of fact, we have over 35,000 units in the planning process at different stages. And the regional official plan accommodates that kind of growth, and that growth and employment land will happen in all 4 townships and all 3 urban settings. There is no doubt that the 3 absolutely outstanding post-secondary education institutions we have for decades attracted bright young people that have enjoyed the quality of life and decided that they would make the region their home. And that's not going to change anytime soon. What we need from the province is investment in schools and infrastructure. We need a new hospital, and we need to, again, have those completed communities so that people can buy groceries, go to the pharmacy, and we've invested in active transportation so they don't have to always rely on their car. All of these things add to the quality of life, and we need to be vigilant. It was interesting yesterday, the University of Waterloo School of Architecture in Cambridge unveiled their project of tiny homes. And I think our history in our region has been built on great ideas, bright young people, innovation, high tech, advanced manufacturing, and then the ability to bring that kind of innovation to the marketplace. So I thought the tiny homes was a really interesting variation on how we continue to build housing. But there is no doubt that accommodating 1 million people by 2051 is going to require the efforts and investment of all levels of government.
Thank you, Karen. Next question, we'll begin with Karen on this one. What financial support should the Ontario government provide to the region of Waterloo?
That's pretty easy, James. More. I would have to tell you that my experience in government has taught me that governments like solutions. They want you to go to them with a focused ask and be able to demonstrate the result of what that ask will be. You know, homelessness in the unsheltered encampments are a topic that I hear about in the media and I hear about at the door. And I would have to tell you the investment in the House of Friendship on Weber Street, giving wraparound service in a different model, the outstanding leadership that Bridges has brought to housing people. During the first wave of the pandemic, 80 people who were then living unhoused found permanent housing. We have to go to the government and say, we need investment in shelters and interim housing. We need more money for outreach workers. We need more money for healthcare providers and partners so that they can provide the mental health supports. So it's being focused and asking for things that we know will make a difference. And that means doing your homework, listening to experts like outreach workers, like our partners. It needs, we need the development community to be part of any solution going forward, whether it's housing or making sure that we have the kind of shovel-ready land so that we can attract investments. So it definitely speaks to going to the government with a focused ask and with your research done. And we do that at the federal government. We do that at the provincial government. And don't forget, 60% of all services delivered at the municipal level are delivered by the region. So the social determinants of health are huge for us. Ontario Works is. We are the manager for shelter, for childcare, and we need that partnership to be funded by the provincial government for those services. As healthcare, it is both provincial and federal that we will go to them for dollars. A new hospital is something that everybody is talking about. I'm a huge proponent of healthcare being delivered in the community as well. So we have lots of challenges, but we've got a lot of very smart people working on what those solutions look like.
Thank you, Karen. Narayan, what financial support should the Ontario government provide to the region of Waterloo?
That is a good question because not everybody has the experience working with a very small budget. And that's what set me apart here, because working for nonprofit and profit as well too, and working for small businesses and so forth, you basically work with a very small budget and you make things work. One of the things I would like to say here, it is easy for us to talk about homelessness and so forth, right? Because that's what we are seeing, right? The common example, we talk about the situation by Weber and Victoria. One thing I would like people to know here, as a clinical social worker, and this might be of surprise to you, believe what I'm saying to you here. My clients, none of them are homeless people. They are police officers. They are vice principal. They are teachers coming from mental health services. And I think it gets overlooked. We have to remind ourselves that we cannot feed off an empty bucket, right? I would have not known, have I not risked myself, but kind of challenged myself to get into mental health, because mental health has never been my thing. I avoided it for many years, but that was part of my way to try and close the gap rather than reading on a piece of paper. And so I start to look at things differently now, because for me, seeing homeless people down the street is an opportunity for us to do some deep self-reflection. Because how the heck are we going to help the homeless people if we ourselves need that help? It's very sad. To come back to the question though, and I'm almost finished here, I think it is important for regular families and so forth to have that support, to have permits and so forth to be approved much faster. I took on a project a few years ago to turn a bungalow into a legal duplex. So I understand the whole process, and it was such of a long process. Inspectors will come; they're not sure if they should have, if they should pass it, not pass it. They're not sure of all of these kind of pieces. So it was sort of a long process. Another thing I would suggest as well too is that we need support where everybody can be part of the solution. Meaning that for me, when we're building houses now, I think it should be automatic where we are putting in a side door to have access to the basement for future use. In fact, 11 years ago when I built my home, I was thinking along the line because I'm an outside of the box thinker, so to speak. I paid $1,000 extra to put the side door to make my basement, usable space, and I'm glad I did. So I think we need to start to think along those lines and not to kind of put a band-aid on top of another band-aid. It doesn't work like that. We need to look for long-term solutions. So those are the direction I'll take. Thank you.
Thank you, Narayan. Next question, we'll begin with you, Narayan, on this one as well. Do you support a new Highway 7 between Waterloo Region and Guelph?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about the population, will grow. And we all know that study shows that. In fact, believe it or not anymore. I've did my share. I commute to Guelph for 10 years back and forth, right? So I see the need, I understand the need because I've been there. And the fact that the region is growing, absolutely, I do support it. I think that's not something that most people will kind of go against, because keep in mind, I talk about the housing piece that I've done, really, right? That's just an example. We have to look ahead. So my answer to that is absolutely 100%. And how will we do it? I mean, we really can do, like I said before, running for regional chair is not a one-man show. We really have to, you really have to have a, you cannot rely only on political experience. I think that's where we fail, because as I mentioned earlier, Ronald Reagan once said that politicians are the problem. They're not the solution. You have to have people with passion. You have to have people with a drive to make it work. So yes, that's my response to the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do you support a new Highway 7 between Waterloo Region and Guelph?
I do, and I would have to say I think most people are scratching their head when the land assembly was made decades ago, and successive governments, including this current provincial government, have said that it's a priority. But I would also add that I think two-way all-day GO completion, the GO transit hub and King Victoria Hub also provide the alternative of public transit, and a line coming from Cambridge into Guelph is really important too. So yes, I support completion of the highway, but I think we have to continue to give viable alternatives for public transit to residents.
Thank you. That now concludes the question portion of the forum. We'll now go into closing statements. Narayan, you can begin your 1 minute closing statement.
1 minute. Come on, James. My dear fellow listeners and viewers, again, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for inviting me here. I was not invited previously, so do know I appreciate this very much. We live in a different time here. And the bottom line is we really have to start to think differently. And that's how I operate professionally with my clients. Because if they're doing the same thing every day, I cannot change anything about their lives. I'm just there to kind of guide them. At the end of the day, they have to make those changes, right? But I'm there to guide them. And I've seen lots of successes. What I'm saying here is that we as individuals, obviously, we have the kind of mindset, right? That we are going to do things a certain way. This time around, I'm asking you to kind of have an open mind and an open heart as well, too. And kind of dig a little bit deeper. Do know that you have a choice here this time around, right? Think about it. You have to have somebody who's passionate. There's a reason why this time around, we don't have too many people running. Last time around, we had quite a few people running because it was an opening spot. Ideally, if I really wanted to get in, I could have easily run for regional council. I would have stand a better chance. I don't operate that way, right? I have really good leadership skills, which is important. I have it through my academic pieces. I have over a dozen university degrees, and these things needs to be considered as well too, right? Having only political experience doesn't really give you the real understanding of working with the everyday people. And that's what the difference is. I want you to think about it that way. And remember this one thing that I keep saying, because it is so true. Ronald Reagan once said that politicians are not the solution, they are the problem. Think about it that way. Do check out my website though, narain.sukram.com. And to Karen, do know I appreciate you. I actually was responding to the question from the beginning based on what I'm hearing in terms of gap. This has nothing to do with you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, we'll go to you for your closing statement.
Thanks, James. I continue to appreciate the opportunity to serve you and our community as chair of Waterloo Region. It's a distinct privilege to have your trust. I come into this election with 20 plus years of experience in building service through elected office. I also served as CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region for 7 years. I come into this election with skills that I have developed over the years, and they've enabled me to navigate an uncertain time, collaborate with local businesses and area municipalities, as well as to advocate effectively on the region's behalf to other levels of government. It is through effective leadership, authentic partnerships, and forward thinking that the region continues to grow and prosper. And it is through strong leadership that big ideas turn into reality. Municipal government has a direct impact on all of us and offers the opportunity to build and shape our community for the future. Voting is important. I encourage you to make a commitment to your community's future by participating in the municipal election on or before October 24th. I respectfully ask for your support. And again, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to the viewers for joining us for this panel.
Thank you both. On behalf of the Chamber, I'd like to thank everyone for taking part in this forum from their busy schedules to participate. If you are a resident of our region, the municipal election is October 24th, and it is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you're aware of voting location. The Chamber hopes this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thanks to everyone, and have a great day.